Wikipedia says, entertainment is any activity which provides a diversion or permits people to amuse themselves in their leisure time, and may also provide fun, enjoyment, and laughter. With this broad definition of entertainment, you can see it covers a lot of things. But could philanthropy be a form of entertainment? I'd like you to think back to the last time you did something nice for someone. Maybe you shared some food with a coworker at work, or took a friend out for a drink after they had a bad day. Maybe you gave to a charity, or even gave to your cousin's crowdfunding campaign. How did it feel? Kind of warm and fuzzy. If you did something that really made a difference, maybe you felt pretty excited. Research has shown that when we do good things for other people, our brains flood our bodies with a special set of hormones. They're called oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. And together, they make up what's known as the Happiness Trifecta. Now, this trifecta does some great things. It boosts our mood. It gives us a feeling of connection with our community, of bonding. It pumps up our immune system, reduces our experience of stress and pain. It helps improve our digestion, our memory, our sleeping, and our ability to learn. And it motivates us to do this all again. So anyway, when we're flooded with a sense of endorphins, with a set of endorphins, we experience pleasure. So what we can say is that giving feels good, does good, and is good for us. But what motivates giving? Some of our generosity is inspired by feelings of community responsibility, social responsibility. Sometimes we give because we need to make ourselves feel better. We see things that happen in the world that cause us emotional discomfort. We might see a child who's been injured, or a family that's hungry and living in poverty. These things make us feel unsettled, scared, maybe even outraged. The good news is that if we see something that we can do to help, even a little bit, this discomfort motivates us to try and help. So we might volunteer our time and put some effort into trying to make a difference. Or we might give some money to other people in order to try and get them to help fix the problem. But no matter what we do, it costs us something. It costs us some effort, some time, some energy, some money. And in order for us, evolutionary-wise, to be rewarded for this, our bodies will create a profound physiological response. And it will flood our bodies with a little bit of this addictive happiness trifecta, and we'll feel a little bit better. And because of the other dopamine that's involved, we're also feeling like we want to do it again. Let's talk about philanthropy. Philanthropy is anything we do to help others, be it an individual, a group, or society at large. We channel a whole bunch of our philanthropy through charities. And one of the big worries that we have right now is that charities are facing a funding squeeze. Individual donors are one of the largest sources of funding for charities, but in the first half of this year, despite the really good economy, the number of donors has been reduced by 6%. If this continues over the course of the next few years, it's going to cause a major source of financial pain for our charities. And that's something I'm really worried about. Charities provide work on some of the hardest problems in our society that businesses and governments can't or don't want to address. We need to figure out how to reverse this loss of donors. And one of the ways to do that is to look at the underlying causes. One of the biggest influencers of that, the demographic shift that's occurring in our society. People that were born after the internet was invented have grown up in a world where online access is a fundamental part of their lives. Some people who were born before the internet, but have nevertheless enthusiastically embraced it. Both of these groups of people like to participate and live their lives online. Because of that, I call them digital citizens. Some people are not as excited about the internet and only occasionally adventure into the digital landscape. I call these people digital tourists. They find the culture of the internet a strange and exciting world that they want to visit, but prefer the familiar comfort of living their lives offline. Now, I was talking with a social entrepreneur a little while ago, and she, assuming I was a digital tourist, she said, how do charities get money or donations from older people like you? I told her about a charity I support. I said, every fall they send me a glossy annual report. And in this annual report, it's filled with facts and figures, lists of major donors, and stories of things that they've done over the last couple of years. They have a little piece of paper in it, and they ask me to write down my gift, put down my credit card number, or if I like, send them back a paper check. There's even a little envelope included so I can mail it all back to them. And they gave me a little fridge magnet so I can think about them every time I go get a snack. I said to her, if they asked you to donate in this way, how would you look at it? And she said, well, they killed some trees, turned it into paper, covered it in colorful but toxic ink that's hard to recycle, and shipped it out to me on a carbon-belching truck. It's filled with stories about other people and old news. With all these paper processes, I wondered whether or not my gift was actually going to do any of the work and solve the problem. And they asked me to write down my credit card number and risk having somebody steal it. Or I could send them a paper check like Grandma used to use. Who uses checks anymore? And how do you recycle that little fridge magnet thing? Is it metal or plastic or what? I said, I'm guessing that's a miss. The point about this is not to malign either group, but to point out the really significant differences in the way fundraising techniques that work for one group of citizens don't work for another. Older people are frequently digital tourists. They prefer to engage with a charity offline using mail or a charity event. This is important because individually they're some of the largest donors. Other people, and especially younger people, prefer to interact with a charity digitally. These digital citizens are now the largest component of our population. Unfortunately, charities haven't been adjusting their fundraising techniques in order to work with them. So what we need is fundamentally a new approach to how to get digital citizens to become digital donors. Now, one of the most important things that a donor say they want is to understand the impact of their gift. And they want transparency. They want to understand how the charity spent the money. The challenge is, if you give $25 to a charity that has an annual budget of millions, it doesn't feel like you made much of a difference. And it's really hard to know exactly what that money would have been spent on. So one of the things charities are doing is they're adopting a divide and conquer approach, where they use digital technology to talk about their work as a series of smaller projects. Each one of them has a much smaller goal, and so therefore feels like it's more achievable. If a donor has now choices about what they could fund and will know more clearly how their money will be used. If the charity follows up and tells the donor the impact or the completion of the story, the donor will not only get a sense of completion, they got that done, but they'll also feel like they actually made a difference. They may even want to give again. The challenge is that this shift from major projects to micro projects intensifies the funding squeeze. The target audience for it is digital citizens. The big challenge with it is, how do we get these donors to give more? Now, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation did some research, and what they've discovered is at first glance a bit counterintuitive. They said that if you want to get someone to give more over the course of a year, the best thing for you to do is to ask for substantially less money, but to ask for it more often. If we think about this in terms of the happiness trifecta, it starts to make some sense. If I make a small gift, I get a small amount of feel-good, of the good hormones. If I make a gift that's 10 times bigger, I don't get 10 times as much good feeling. So in order to make this work, what we have to do is encourage donors to make these micro gifts on a regular basis. Because what that does is our brains start to pump out a little bit of the happiness trifecta each time, and the aggregate experience is much better. As well, the dopamine actually helps us anticipate the good feelings we're going to get, and so therefore helps make giving a habit. Okay, so that's all well and good, but how do we get digital donors to give multiple times? I mean, this is an e-commerce. We just can't send them a bonus gift every time they give us a gift. That's kind of defeats the purpose, and they'd get mad at us anyway for wasting their money. But fortunately, the solution to this is surprisingly simple. What we've discovered is that while telling the donor the impact of their gift is good, telling them an entertaining backstory about it and then keeping them updated on the progress is much better. It costs the charity almost nothing and yet scales up to huge numbers of donors. Let me give you an example. So imagine one of your friends shared a story with you on social media. Apollo is a guide dog who's being in training to help someone who can't see. The charity needs help funding Apollo's training. It takes 2 years and it costs about $35,000 in order to get that done. The charity starts a crowdfunding campaign that tells the story of Apollo's journey. And a very important part of this is it tells the impact result. What's going to happen in the end once this happens? And in this case, it's that Apollo will end up having his partner for life, whose own life will be transformed by his arrival. You're asked to make a small donation. You go, hey, I can spare $10 and donate to help Apollo accomplish his mission. A couple of weeks go by and you get an email from the charity. It's a photo of Apollo hanging out with one of his friends, Bravo. They didn't ask you to donate. It's just a show and tell. It's the kind of thing that you'd share with your friends if this was your puppy. So you search the charity's campaign site, you find Bravo's campaign, and you follow it so you get updates about her too. And you share with a couple of your friends in case they can help contribute. A couple weeks go by. You get another email. The story says, Apollo is eating like a horse. It costs $20 just to feed him for 4 days. If anyone out there can please help feed this ravenous beast, please make a small donation. You think, I can spare $20 and help to give again. I've just made multiple donations to the same small project. A week goes by. We get another email. It's a photo of big stacks of dog food with a little caption that says, Apollo likes his food. Thanks. Now, when charities share stories like this, they're promoting transparency. They're showing you how your money was used. And the donor gets an idea that even making a small gift can have a tangible impact. Further, it gives what's called social proof, that other people are also helping to move this project forward. It's been validated by the community. So, 3 weeks go by, no email. You check the website to find out how your puppy is doing. And the trainers have been posting videos of their sessions. You really like the work that Sharma, one of the trainers, is doing with Apollo. She's amazing in the way she helps him. And it shows how much time is spent actually doing this training work. So now you have an understanding of how expensive it is, why it's so expensive to train a guide dog. So you share that with your friends because you want them to see why you're so excited about your puppy project. This kind of episodic, incremental storytelling goes on the entire time for Apollo's journey. And it ends up and culminates with Apollo meeting his new life partner, Grace, and going home. What you've just heard is what's known as a hero's journey. It's a common archetypal story in theater and movies. Apollo's our hero. He has a mission. He's going to be a guardian angel for someone who needs his help. We have a plot. Training will be full of ups and downs as it goes. We have a supporting cast, Sharma the trainer, Grace the new life partner. We may even have some villains, don't get me started on those office cats. We have some setbacks. That hot, juicy steak mysteriously disappeared from the dining room table. We can have some challenges. Some dogs like playing in mud puddles but don't like taking a bath. And we can have some small triumphs. Apollo helped Grace avoid a dangerous traffic situation during training. And then in the end, We end up with a climactic final scene, Apollo going home with Grace. That was a real tearjerker. Through all of this, through all the social sharing, Apollo ends up with a huge audience and group who, through a series of small contributions, have helped make him achieve his mission. I hope what you can see is that philanthropic storytelling can be entertaining as well as impactful. It enables charities to work with digital donors and harnesses our love of stories and our biological feedback mechanisms to help make giving a habit. Now, I admit, Apollo's story is particularly compelling compared to other causes, but this same technique works for all sorts of different kinds of projects. The secret is in the quality and variety of the storytelling. There's many different ways to tell a story. In visual entertainment, we have different genres. We have action adventure, science fiction, romantic comedies. In philanthropic entertainment, we also have genres. Disaster recovery, environmental issues, poverty reduction. The lists on both sides are huge. We can currently browse hundreds of thousands of movies and TV shows with our internet-connected fingers. And when we find one we like, we tend to binge watch them. What if we could find a similar size list of charitable projects around the world where we could discover entertaining stories that we want to support and where we can make a difference, and we participate because that makes us feel good? We could end up binge watching charity for good. So if you will, binge watching charity feels good and does good for our society, and because of the hormonal benefits, is also good for us. As a donor and a consumer, demand that charities tell you detailed stories about the projects that you support and how your money is used. Offer to give them more money if you'll do it. If we can do that, we can reimagine philanthropy and change the way that charity is funded. Philanthropy? Now that's entertainment.